Hey guys, welcome to Impact Infusion. Here we are starting a new series today called Radical, as you can see here. It's going to be a study through the book of Daniel and talking about what it means to have radical faith. Daniel's story was an amazing story. This is one of those stories that you look back and you might learn as a kid if you've grown up in the church and you're like, whoa, that was way cool, I totally want to be like Daniel. I did. And it's one of those things that through this story, we learn a lot of cool things about what it means to be set apart. And that's what we're going to look at today, being set apart, being radical. Radical. When I hear that word radical, I totally think about the years that I lived in California and how rad was a cool word, and I use that often. But also, I use the word radical a lot. That's radical, dude. I can't believe it. That's awesome. And so those are some words that I use on a regular basis. Well, we're talking about what it means to be different, to be set apart, to be different than the normal, than what the world is saying we should be like. You see, I got 4 drinks in front of me. I got a Pepsi. Okay, I got a root beer, I got a Coke, and I got a Doc 360. Okay, and with these 4, there's a lot of similarities. They're all brown. If you were to pour them out, they would all be a brown liquid in them. They're almost about the exact same size in volume, but there's one distinct difference to them. One of these is by Coke. Surprise, surprise. And the other ones are bottled by Pepsi. Yes, I said the word. Alright? They might not be directly with Pepsi, but they are an offspring or a branch of the company. And that's what it means to be set apart. Of these 3, this one sets apart. This one is totally different because it's a different company. It's a different mantra, it's different, all these different things that Coke is about is different than Pepsi. Now, are the formulas pretty similar? I will admit, yeah, they are pretty similar. There's a couple of key differences that make the taste a little bit different, but ultimately, there is a distinct difference right here. It's set apart. Today we're going to look at Daniel chapter 1. If you get a chance, in the next couple weeks, read through Daniel. That would be awesome. That would be a great way to put you up in understanding what this means to be radical means. And as we start a new year, I challenge you guys to be radical, to live differently in your faith, to live differently when you're at school, to live differently when you're at home, to live differently in a positive way for the Lord. Daniel, you see, what happened with the Israelites is the Israelites were doing their thing, and all of a sudden big bad Babylon comes along and takes them under captivity, takes them under slavery. Now, the Bible says they besieged them, which also means that they were enslaved. And so they get enslaved. Nebuchadnezzar, you might have heard of this guy before. Maybe you have. He's kind of the ruler of the time. And he's the king, and so he takes the Israelites and he takes them under, they're under slavery. This kind of happened a lot with Israel. If you think about with Egypt, if you think about with Babylon, there's the captivity that happened a long time, during this time. Israel wasn't that great of a country. They weren't a military force. That's why so often they got taken under. But God was with them. God was protecting them. God was showing Himself through these things that were happening. So, here he is. They're under slavery. King Nebuchadnezzar has them. And he decides that, all right, I've got this group of people under my wing. And they're under me. I'm going to take some of them because I'm sure that there's some wise people over there, which is actually kind of a smart move. And I'm going to take some of them with me, and I'm going to have them, and they're going to be kind of some of my my advisors. So he looks through the whole country of Israel, and he finds 4 dudes. And one of them being Daniel, and one of them, or the other 3 are the guys that you might know as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And they had names, but when they started hanging out with the king changed their names. But the king decided, he had a kind of a popularity beauty contest, and he picked these 4 guys. They were good looking, they were fit, and they from what they could gather, they were pretty smart guys. So he gets these guys, and he takes them and he starts training them. And when they start training them, he starts feeding them the king's food. Here's some meat, and here's some potatoes, and here's some vegetables, and here's a whole bunch of wine. Drink, drink, drink. And they take those, and they said, all right, Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are like, I don't like that king's food. But at the same time, we want to be different. Yes, we're Israelites, we're not Babylonians, but we want to set apart. So they decide they're going to eat something different. And the king's officials hear about this, and they kind of like, ooh, what's going on here? And they kind of freak out a little bit. That's where we pick up. Daniel chapter 1, verse 8. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine. And he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. Now God had caused an official to show favor and sympathy to Daniel. But the official told Daniel, I am afraid of my lord the king, who has assigned your food and drink. Why should he see you looking worse than other young men your age? The king would then have my head because of you. You see, they decided to eat this different diet, and they were afraid that they weren't going to be strong and they weren't going to be all strapping like they were. And so Daniel steps out and kind of puts his life on the line, not just the helper, but his life on the line as well, to stand out and be different than the rest. So he goes and he eats this different food. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, and Daniel eat this different food because they're during this training period. They're not officially in the royal court yet, but they're eating this different stuff. They're getting trained, and so totally different than what everyone else is doing. And then what happens in verse 18? At the end of the time set by the king, he brought them in, and the chief official presented them to Nebuchadnezzar. The king talked to them, and he found none equal to Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. That was their original names. So they entered the king's service. In every matter of wisdom and understanding about which the king questioned them, he found them 10 times better than all the magicians and enchanters in his whole kingdom. These guys weren't those kind of people. They weren't enchanters, they weren't magicians. They were just regular guys that followed after God. Alright? And Daniel remained there until the first year of King Cyrus. Alright? So they get their in. They're now in the king's courts. They're some of the king's officials, king's advisors. They are now standing different than everyone else because of a dietary change. Whoa! If you think about it, I love this stuff. I love pop. Okay? I love it. But when I was doing my marathon, I cut this stuff out. And I started drinking just water. And I tell you what, I started thinking differently. As in, like, I could think clearer now. I had more energy. Even though the caffeine or the sugar just gets me up and I'm like, ah! No. But when I drank water, I felt differently. Just like Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They thought differently. They acted differently. They had more energy because they had given their lives to God, and He had rewarded them by living this stuff out. Radical. Are you living a set-apart life? Are you living in a way that if someone were to come up to you and said, something's different about them? And I'm not talking about just, changing your wardrobe. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about changing your hairstyle. I'm not talking about coloring your hair. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about, are you living different than the world and according to the Bible that sets you apart? That sets you apart to live radically in this world. God did not call us to be just like everyone else. He called us to go against the flow. If you've ever seen that poster, there's this old 90s poster of all these fish, and then there's this Christian fish that's going the other direction. Just one fish. And it says, go against the flow. In small group, you're going to talk about some of these things. And I want you to really consider and really be honest with your small group. Are you living differently? Are you just living like everyone else? I don't know how you're living, but I want you to examine yourself and think about, if someone were to come up to you and they hung out with you for 24 hours, would your life look different? And the question, and a good question to ask is, if I, Jonathan, were to come to your school and I asked your non-Christian friends, what do you know about them? What do you know about your friend? Would they say he's a Christian? Would they say he acts differently? Would they say you have different morals than all the rest of the world? I don't know. But that is a great way to determine if you're living different. Now, I'm not talking about all of a sudden getting a Bible thumping and smacking someone across the head. It might feel good, but it wouldn't be setting apart. You see, this one, even though they're all the same color, this one is set apart because of the company. All the same, they're all brown. Ultimately, this one is different. Are you different? You might look, if I lined everyone, all the people in your school up, you would all look the same, pretty much. And there would be a little difference because of, hairstyle and clothing and stuff. But ultimately, your actions, what you stand for, would it be different than everyone else? And I've just said that a bunch of times because I really want it to really sink in, and I really wanted you to think about this in a serious way. Let me pray and we'll go to small groups. Father God, thank you so much for the story of Daniel, and the story that just shows that we are to be set apart. We are to act differently. Lord, I pray that you would just be with us. Lord, I pray that we'd be honest and open about how we are living our lives for you. I pray that you would just help us to be radical in our actions. And if we are radical, Lord, I pray that we take a little bit of a risk and be more radical. But ultimately, Lord, we have to do this under your power. If we do it under our own power, we will fail. So, Lord, I pray that you would just help us to live this out. Thank you so much for all that you're doing in our lives. We love you. Pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.